The lights went out just as Ava reached for the kitchen tap. 1 second, the whole apartment glowed in soft evening yellow. The next, everything drowned in an unnatural, choking black. The hum of the fridge died. Her ceiling fan stopped mid-spin. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was wrong, heavy, like the walls were listening. She froze, fingers still curled around the faucet, her breath caught mid-inhale. And then, from behind her in the dark, a soft giggle. Ava spun around, heart jackhammering in her chest. "Hello?" Nothing, just the creak of old wood under her feet and the low moan of wind against the window panes. But she knew what she'd heard. It had been a child's giggle. Short, high, familiar. Her hand fumbled along the kitchen counter until it found her phone. The screen lit up her pale, wide-eyed reflection in the glass cabinet. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no power, just 12% battery, and a growing dread in her stomach. Then came the footsteps, soft, padding like bare feet on cold tile, moving slowly from her bedroom toward the hall. Ava lived alone. She grabbed the largest knife from the block without thinking. "Who's there?" she called out, voice shaky but loud. Silence. And then, a child's voice from the hall. "Mommy!" Her blood turned to ice. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." She ran toward the hallway, phone trembling in her grip, flashlight on. The hallway was empty. The door to her bedroom was open, but the room beyond was pitch black. "Is this some kind of joke?" she shouted. "Who's in my house?" Still nothing. The air felt thick now, like breathing through wet cotton. And then her phone screen flickered, glitched, and went black. She cursed under her breath. The flashlight was gone. The room plunged back into total darkness. Something moved beside her. She gasped and slashed out blindly with the knife. It hit only air, but this time she felt breath against her ear. "Why did you leave me in the dark, Mommy?" Ava screamed. 6 hours earlier, Ava had been driving home from her shift at the hospital, exhausted and wired on black coffee. She'd taken a different route that night. Her usual exit was blocked by a crash. This detour led her through a small neighborhood she didn't recognize. At a red light, she saw it. A little girl standing by the road, holding a stuffed bear. Barefoot, Ava pulled over instinctively, rolled down the window. "Hey, are you okay? Are you lost?" The girl didn't respond, just stared at her with empty eyes. That's when a man ran out from behind the bushes, grabbed the child's arm, and yanked her away from the curb. The little girl didn't scream, didn't fight. Ava shouted, "Hey, is she yours?" The man didn't even look back. She sat there stunned, then grabbed her phone to call the police. But before she could dial, the lights on her dashboard flickered. Her car shut off completely. The blackout started right then, and now, hours later, it had followed her home. Back in the apartment, Ava was hiding in her locked bathroom, trying to stay quiet, knife still in hand. Her phone had died completely. The power was still out. She didn't dare light a candle. She didn't want to see whatever was now in the apartment with her. Something had followed her home from that street. She knew it. Suddenly, a knock. From inside the bathroom, she looked at the door. It hadn't come from outside. It came from behind her. She turned slowly, flashlight flickering on once more, briefly, and in that instant, she saw it in the mirror. The little girl, standing behind her, eyes black as oil, blood dripping from her stuffed bear. The light died. Ava screamed and lunged forward, crashing through the bathroom door into the hallway. She ran for the front door, unlocked it, and threw it open, and stopped. Outside her apartment, the entire city was lit. Streetlights, traffic, even her neighbor's hallway across the way. Everything was glowing bright, like nothing had ever gone out. She looked back over her shoulder. Her apartment was still in total darkness. She slammed the door shut behind her and ran downstairs barefoot, knife still in hand, heart in her throat. At the police station the next morning, she tried explaining everything. The responding officer frowned. Ma'am, there was no blackout, not in your building, not on your block. That's not possible. My power went out for hours. He turned his monitor toward her. Security footage from her hallway played. In the video, she's seen running out of her apartment at 2:07 a.m., looking terrified, but the hall lights are clearly on. The officer leaned back in his chair. Maybe you had a blown fuse, but no one else lost power. You sure you're feeling okay? Ava didn't respond. She didn't tell him about the girl, or the knock, or the voice that still whispered, even now, faintly, when no one else was around. Mommy! 2 weeks later, Ava disappeared. Her apartment was found completely intact. Lights working, no signs of forced entry. Her phone was on the kitchen counter, battery full. On the bathroom mirror, written in what looked like ashes, were 3 words. Found you again. No GPS, no cell service, no lights, just the sharp beam of his high beams cutting through the suffocating black ahead. Liam didn't remember the tunnel being this long. He gripped the steering wheel tighter as the shadows thickened around. His rental car, the road ahead dipping into what looked like endless night. His radio had gone dead minutes ago, replaced by static. And then silence. His eyes flicked to the dashboard clock. 1:47 a.m. He should have been back in the city by now. The storm had knocked out most of the highway signs, forcing him to detour through a forgotten mountain pass just west of Coldmere. According to the gas station guy, this road would curve back to the interstate in no time, but that was 40 minutes ago. Now, Liam was driving deeper into the tunnel, one that from the outside didn't look more than a couple hundred meters long, but he'd been inside it for nearly 6 minutes. No exits, no markings, just old stone walls and the endless echo of tires on concrete. And then, his headlights flickered. Liam leaned forward. Don't you dare! They died. Total darkness. He slammed the brakes, heart hammering, jaw clenched. The car skidded, fishtailed slightly, then stopped. His hands trembled as he reached for the key, yanked it out and restarted. Nothing. He tried again and again, still nothing. The car sat dead in the black, like a coffin. And then, the knocking began. It came from behind, not from outside the car, from inside the trunk. Liam froze. 3 slow knocks, then silence, then 4 more, louder. He reached slowly into the glove compartment for the tire iron. His hands were slick with sweat now. He opened the driver door and stepped out. Silence. The tunnel stretched in both directions. Pitch black, still wrong. No lights, no distant glow. Just a damp smell like wet stone and rusted iron. He walked to the back of the car, every step echoing like it didn't belong. He stood at the trunk, tire iron raised. Knock, knock, knock. He unlocked it. The trunk lifted slowly with a groan. Empty. Nothing but the roadside emergency kit and his spare. No one. Nothing. He lowered the tire iron, exhaled, and whispered to himself, "Get a grip, man." Then he turned back to the driver's seat and stopped. There was someone sitting inside, in the passenger seat. He hadn't seen anyone get in. He'd only been gone seconds. The figure didn't move. It was small, childlike, head tilted to the side. Its hand rested on the dashboard, fingers leaving black smudges like soot. He stepped back. Who are you?" The figure turned slowly. Toward him, its face was pale, almost waxy. The eyes were completely black, and then it smiled. A slow, broken smile that stretched wider than it should have. Liam dropped the tire iron and ran. He didn't remember how far or how long he ran, just that the tunnel never ended. He ran until his legs gave out, until he fell to his knees, sobbing into the silence, praying he would wake up, that the road would end, that this wasn't real. But it was, because when he looked up, the tunnel had changed. The stone was darker now. The walls were streaked with what looked like burn marks. The air smelled like charred hair and metal, and on the wall ahead of him, written in blackened ash, was a name, AVA. Liam blinked. The name meant nothing to him, but something deep in his. A gut twisted. Then from the darkness behind him, footsteps. He turned. The figure was walking toward him slowly. Still smiling, still holding something in its hand. It wasn't a weapon. It was a stuffed bear. Earlier that evening, Liam had stopped at a rundown diner just before the storm rolled in. He was supposed to be photographing an abandoned psychiatric ward near Coldmere for a freelance piece on haunted architecture. The waitress had warned him, "Storm's gonna cut the power out here by sundown. Best be out of the hills before dark." But Liam had always chased the dark. It was where the stories lived. He'd ignored her warning, left the asylum just after 11, and by the time the blackout hit, he was already lost. And now, he wasn't sure if the tunnel was even real anymore. Somehow, he made it out. Liam burst out of the tunnel just before dawn, gasping for air, shaking uncontrollably. The road beyond was silent and slick with dew. His car was gone. He flagged down a truck after nearly 30 minutes. The driver gave him a strange look, but drove him to a hospital. Liam tried to explain. They ran tests, said he was dehydrated, sleep-deprived, possibly hallucinating. But he knew what he saw. And when the nurse handed him his personal effects, his backpack, his wallet, he found something that made his blood run cold. A child's stuffed bear, burnt at the edges, smudged with soot. He had never owned it, never seen it, and stitched across the bear's stomach in faded pink thread was one word: Ava, do. Not open the attic window. That's what the lease had said. In bold, underlined, the clause was wedged between outdated safety warnings and a half-hearted list of local wildlife precautions. Maya had laughed when she first read it. She and her fiancé Jordan had just rented the remote hillside cabin for a much-needed break after their miscarriage. A week without work, people, or noise. Just the mountains, just them. The power outage hit on night 2. No storm, no warning, just the hum of the fridge dying mid-buzz, then total darkness, as if something had unplugged the world. Jordan went down to check the fuse box. Maya lit a candle and walked upstairs. That's when she saw it. The attic door, wide open. Neither of them had opened it, and at the top of the narrow staircase was a window, ajar, swaying slightly with the wind. Maya stared at it. That window was never supposed to be open. She stepped up into the attic. The air felt colder, heavier. The candle flame fluttered unnaturally. She reached for the window. As her hand touched the frame, she saw her reflection blink, but she hadn't. Maya jolted backward, nearly dropping the candle. The window was now shut, tightly. No breeze, no sound. She stood frozen. The attic was quiet, still, but the reflection, it had blinked, and for a moment, it had smiled. When Jordan returned, she didn't mention it. Not the attic, not the reflection, not the suffocating silence that had settled over the house since the blackout. They made dinner by flashlight, ate in awkward silence, and went to bed without saying much. Maya dreamed of the attic. In the dream, the window was open again, but this time she climbed out onto the roof, into the cold. She stood barefoot, staring into the woods. Then she heard her own voice behind her. "She's not you anymore." She woke in a sweat. The house was still dark. Jordan was gone. She called his name. No answer. The sheets beside her were cold. She checked the kitchen. The porch, nothing. Then she heard it, a thud from upstairs, the attic. She climbed the stairs slowly, flashlight beam jittering across the walls. The attic door was open again. Inside, Jordan stood by the window. "Maya," he said, eyes wide. I just woke up here. I don't remember coming up." She approached him cautiously. "You've been gone for hours." He shook his head. "No, His voice caught. Then they both looked at the window. It was open again, and in the glass, they saw a third person, a woman, standing behind them. They spun around. Nothing, just shadows. Maya's flashlight flickered. Then the window slammed shut. The next few days blurred. No power, no signal, and no way to leave. The car refused to start. The road out was blocked by fallen trees after a sudden night storm. Every time they tried to leave on foot, they'd find themselves back at the cabin, like the forest was folding in on itself. Jordan began changing. He'd stare out the window for hours, whisper under his breath. Sometimes he'd stand at the attic stairs, unmoving. One morning, Maya found him sketching in a notebook, dozens of pages, all the same image, a black-eyed woman in the attic window. On the fifth night, Maya woke to whispers coming from the attic. When she got upstairs, the window was wide open, cold wind pouring in. Jordan was gone again, but this time, he hadn't gone far. She saw him outside, standing on the roof, staring into the woods. She screamed his name. He didn't move, just slowly raised a hand and pointed. She looked in the woods. Below, among the trees, dozens of pale figures stood, all silent, all staring up at her, and then the power returned. Sudden, violent. Every light in the house flickered on at once. The attic bulb exploded. Maya fell backward, shielding her face. When she looked again, Jordan was gone, the roof empty, the woods empty, and the window shut. She called the police. By the time they arrived, it was morning. They found no sign of Jordan. No prints on the roof, no figures in the woods, no explanation. The house was working fine. No signs of electrical damage, no blocked roads, no fallen trees. The only thing the officers raised eyebrows at, the window, old, painted shut, rust sealed. It closed, hinges stiff, impossible to open, but Maya knew what she saw. When she went to pack their things, she found Jordan's notebook, still open. The last page was blank, except for one line, written in unfamiliar handwriting, "She's not you anymore. There's something under the floor." That's what Ellie's brother whispered before the blackout hit. And it was the last thing he said before vanishing. Without a sound. It started in their childhood home, a crumbling Victorian house in Nova Scotia. Ellie had only returned because her mother, recently diagnosed with dementia, could no longer care for herself. She hadn't planned to stay. But then the storm came and the power went out. By candlelight, Ellie and her younger brother Sam sat with their mother in the living room. The wind howled outside like a pack of wolves, and their mother kept muttering nonsense. "Don't dig, don't dig, don't dig." At first, Ellie thought it was just the disease, until she noticed something strange about the floorboards in the hallway. They'd always creaked, but now they pulsed. The first night, Ellie barely slept. Her flashlight kept dying, and the backup batteries had vanished. Sam offered to go into town for supplies in the morning. He never made it out. She found his backpack by the front door, shoes gone, keys gone, but his phone was still charging. Ellie tried to call the police, but the line buzzed and repeated a single word on loop: below. She began to panic. The house had always had strange history, local rumors of tunnels beneath it, whispers of people who went missing after spending the night, but they were just that. Rumors, until the second night. That's when Ellie heard scratching under the floorboards, soft at first, then louder, and then knocking. She pried up a loose board in the hallway. Beneath it was a crawl space she'd never seen before, tight, damp, lined with dirt and rotting beams. At the far end, something moved. Too vast to see, too quiet to track. Ellie lowered her flashlight. There were handprints in the dirt, but they were too small to be Sam's. And they were moving, terrified. She sealed the board and stacked furniture over it. She tried to leave the house, but every time she opened the front door, it led her back into the same hallway, loop after loop. Her mother wandered the house at night, repeating the same phrase. "We shouldn't have buried it. We shouldn't have buried it." Ellie begged her for answers. Through a moment of rare clarity, her mother whispered, They come during the blackout. They feed on memory. Then she looked Ellie dead in the eyes. If you forget yourself, they take you. By the third night, Ellie was unraveling, sleep-deprived, hallucinating. She began seeing Sam in corners of rooms, watching her. Sometimes he looked normal. Other times his face was stretched, too wide, too still. She chased one of the figures into the attic, but when she opened the door, it led underground, to a tunnel she had never seen before. She climbed down. The walls were lined with names, carved in shaky hands, dozens of them. Some she recognized, old family members, even a teacher from childhood who'd vanished mysteriously. At the end of the tunnel, there was a mirror. It flickered in the candlelight like water. As she approached, she saw her reflection, but younger. Then it changed. Her face dissolved, and her mother's face appeared. Then Sam's, then Jordan's. Yes, Jordan from the cabin. They were connected, all of them. She fell to her knees, and from behind her something whispered, "You remember, so we'll let you go." Ellie awoke on the floor of her childhood bedroom. The power was back. Her mother was gone. No sign of Sam, no tunnel, no mirror, just her name carved in the wood near her bed. Ellie, remember. She checked her phone. Dozens of missed calls. One message stood out. It was from a blocked number. "You're not crazy. Cabin girl saw them too. Don't forget. It's how they win." Attached was an image, grainy, dark, but unmistakable. It was the attic window from Jordan and Maya's cabin, and standing inside it was Ellie. "I saw you in the cabin. You shouldn't be alive." That's what the message said. Ellie stared at the image of herself standing in Jordan and Maya's cabin window, the exact one destroyed in the blackout 6 years ago. The night Jordan vanished. The night Maya ran screaming into the woods. The night something watched them from the lake, but Ellie had never been there, or had she? The message had come from a burner number. No name, no way to reply. But it said what Ellie already feared. This wasn't just about her family. Whatever had stalked her childhood home had stalked others too. So Ellie did what scared survivors always do. She tried to find someone who believed her. 3 days later, sitting in a rural diner lit by humming fluorescents, Ellie met someone who did, Maya. She hadn't seen Maya since the news reports, since the world painted her as a traumatized girl with a psychotic break after the cabin blackout. But in person, Maya was nothing like Ellie expected. She wasn't broken. She was prepared. Wearing a thick black hoodie, a leather satchel across her chest, Maya slid a file onto the table and whispered, "You're not the first. I'm not the last. And no one believes the ones who survive." Ellie opened the file. Inside were photos, news clippings, handwritten notes, and a list of names. All survivors of blackouts. All of them reported the same thing: time loops, mirrors that showed wrong reflections, vanished loved ones, lost identities. And one line appeared over and over: "They feed on memory." Maya looked up, dead serious. "You said you saw me in a mirror, right? In that tunnel?" Ellie nodded. Maya leaned in. "I saw you in the lake that night. You were staring at me. But you weren't real. I think we were both somewhere we weren't supposed to be," Ellie whispered. "But why us?" Maya's eyes didn't waver. "Because we're broken. That's what they need." That night, the two of them returned to where it started for. Maya, the ruins of the cabin deep in Ontario's forest. The area had been fenced off, condemned due to ground instability, but Maya had keys. She'd been back before. Inside the shattered remains, everything was frozen in time: rotted mattresses, shattered glass, a child's drawing still pinned to a crumbling wall, a stick figure standing under a black sun. Ellie turned to Maya. "What are we looking for?" Maya didn't answer. She just pointed at the fireplace. Beneath the soot and broken bricks, something had been buried. They cleared it together, slow, careful, until Ellie's fingers hit wood. A small, sealed box. Inside were 3 things: a photo of Jordan, Maya, And a third girl Ellie didn't recognize. A mirror shard, the same strange ripple pattern as the one in Ellie's tunnel. A note, smeared and damp, but readable. If you're reading this, I've already forgotten who I am. Don't let them. Inside, if you see yourself in a place you've never been, run. Maya's hand trembled as she whispered. That third girl, her name was Lila. She was my cousin. She vanished that night. Police never found her body. Ellie looked again at the photo. The girl's smile seemed too wide, eyes too empty. She's the one I saw in my dream after Sam vanished. Maya nodded. Then she's still alive, or something wearing her is. Suddenly, Ellie's flashlight flickered. Darkness rolled in fast. Too fast. The wind picked up outside like a scream. Maya stood. No, not now. It's not supposed to be tonight. Ellie turned toward the window. The world outside had gone black. Even the moon had disappeared. Another blackout, but this time it felt personal. The fireplace roared to life on its own. The mirror shard glowed faintly, and from the hallway, a voice called out, Maya, Ellie, why did you forget me? It was Jordan's voice, but it didn't sound right. They backed away. Hands clasped, a figure stepped into the doorway. Jordan, but not Jordan. His skin was pale, eyes empty. He moved like a puppet, and he smiled. You remember me now, don't you? That's all I needed, Maya whispered. You're not him. He grinned wider. Not anymore. The walls began to twist, literally bend, as if the cabin was no longer bound by space. Ellie screamed as the room melted into a tunnel, the same one from her childhood home. But now it was longer, infinite. Mirrors lined both sides, all rippling like water. In each mirror, different versions of them. One where Ellie had died, one where Maya never screamed, one where Jordan was human again. They ran, footsteps chased them, slithering sounds from the dark. Ellie reached for the note again. If you see yourself in a place you've never been, run. But they'd already failed that. They reached the end of the tunnel. There was a mirror door, but this time it was open. Inside, a version of Ellie stood, calm, unafraid, and behind her, Sam, alive. He reached out. Come with me. You'll be safe here. It's better. We remember you. Maya pulled Ellie back. It's not real. That's not Sam. But Ellie stepped forward. What if it is? What if this is how I get him back? Maya shook her head. That's what they want. Your grief, your need. They'll feed on it forever. Ellie hesitated. Sam spoke again. I never blamed you. Just let go. Then Ellie looked into the mirror and saw herself again. But this time, her real self, scarred, grieving, fighting to stay sane. She made a choice. She smashed the mirror with the shard she'd brought from the box. It screamed, high and unnatural. The tunnel shattered and the world collapsed into white. She woke in a hospital bed, Maya beside her, covered in scratches, eyes red. They were safe, at least for now. The news said there had been a forest fire, power outages. They'd been found unconscious near the cabin ruins. Jordan's body was never recovered, but the mirror shard was still in Ellie's pocket, and etched into it a new phrase had appeared. One more blackout left. One more blackout left. Ellie had no idea what that meant, but she could feel it, like a pressure building in the sky. Something final was coming. It had been 5 weeks since the cabin, since Ellie and Maya crawled back from whatever liminal, mirrored dimension tried to swallow them, since they destroyed the tunnel, the reflections, and what pretended to be Sam. And though they'd survived, they both carried scars, deep ones. Ellie didn't sleep much, and when she did, she saw Sam, always behind glass, always calling her name, but never reaching her. They'd spent the last few weeks tracking down the others, survivors of strange blackouts just like them, and they found 5. A woman in Alberta who lost her twin during a 6-minute power outage. Man in rural Australia who hadn't aged in 12 years. 2 sisters in the UK who said the stars blinked out. and came back rearranged. A boy in Louisiana who drew pictures of himself standing over his own grave every day since the lights went out. Every single one of them remembered the same sound when it began, a low, humming static, like something trying to come through. Maya gathered them all. They met in an old storm shelter deep in the Ontario woods. No mirrors, no power lines, no signal, just a circle of people who had nothing left to lose. And Maya said, "We don't hide anymore. We finish it." That night, the temperature dropped fast. The survivors lit candles, set protective circles, kept their flashlights on. But at 2:44 a.m., it happened anyway. The lights flickered, then vanished. The last blackout had begun. But this time, they were ready. What came wasn't darkness. It was white, blinding, total, like they'd been erased. Ellie blinked. She was standing in her childhood home. No one else around, no candles, no Maya, just her and Sam sitting at the kitchen table, smiling. "You made it," he said softly. Ellie's knees gave out. "You're not real." Sam reached across the table, touched her. Hand warm, familiar, real. Does it matter? Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, that this was them, the things in the mirrors, in the tunnels, in the silence. But her grief tugged harder. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. Sam smiled sadly. "We don't do anything, we just become what's needed. You needed to say goodbye. That's why I'm here." He slid a folded piece of paper across the table. One last choice. Ellie opened it. Inside were two sentences: "Stay and forget," or "Leave and remember." Behind Sam, the walls rippled, becoming mirrors. Each one showed a version of her, one where she never left. One where Sam lived, one where Maya died, endless versions. And in the corner, she saw Maya, still fighting, still running, still calling her name. Ellie stood, tears streaming down her face. "I miss you, every day." Sam's smile didn't fade. Then, "Use it, let it change you. Grief is the bridge, not the destination." Ellie turned away, faced the mirror. "I choose to remember." The moment she spoke, everything shattered. Light, sound, memory, and then black. She woke in the forest, covered in ash, her ears ringing. Around her, the other survivors were waking too. Maya crawled toward her, bleeding but alive. "Did it work?" Ellie whispered. Maya nodded. "They're gone." Later, news stations would report a solar flare, a magnetic storm, a glitch in satellite systems. But no one could explain why everyone who had ever experienced a blackout-related trauma suddenly woke up, healed. Some remembered faces they'd forgotten. Some found letters that had never been written. Some just cried for the first time in years. But they all had one thing in common. They saw a mirror somewhere near them, cracked clean down the center. Ellie and Maya stood at the lake one last time. This time, the surface was still, peaceful. No faces, no tunnels, no voices calling from below. Ellie dropped the final shard into the water. "Goodbye, Sam." And for the first time, there was no echo, only silence, only peace. Ellie now teaches others about memory, trauma, and facing the things we bury. Maya runs a support group for survivors of unexplained events. Neither of them fears the dark anymore, because now they know the truth. The scariest things don't live in shadows. They live in us when we don't let go. And sometimes, surviving means choosing to remember it all, the end,